Welcome back. I'm Tom Hewitt, and this is News 13's Eye on the Election. I'm here with Tammie Wilson, who's running for House District 2 in the state races this fall. And Tammie, you're an incumbent in the district that you were in that now no longer exists, and Bob Miller, your opponent, also an incumbent. Why do you think that you would be the Interior would be better served with you holding that seat than your opponent?
Well, first of all, HB 9, which had to do with the oil pipeline, I voted in favor of it, worked on it very hard, and my opponent voted against it. And because the Senate also wouldn't take it up, we have now delayed that project further. And right now, as you know, we're very desperate for affordable energy, and how someone could vote no on a project that would get us to that point was really beyond me. The other part is that we are so restricted. There are so many regulations, and it just seems like it's a constant thing. And I take that very serious. In fact, I'm going to bring a bill forward this next year on when a regulation comes out, what does that do to small business or to who you're doing that? Anchorage does that already in the city. We do it for the state, how it impacts the state government, but we need to know how it's going to impact the regular business. You know, how much cost is going to go to that. And right now that's not looked at, and that really is just wrong.
You mentioned this a little bit with your talk about HB 9 there, but Governor Sean Parnell has called for a sizable cut in the oil excise tax, and it's intended to spur production, but it would also put a pretty big dent in the state budget. What is your take on the governor's plan there, and do you support it?
Well, HB 110 went through a lot of changes in the House. We worked on it for months. So we didn't completely agree with how it was, but right now we are not competitive when it comes to that. So some of the changes that I thought was important is that the new tax structure didn't take place for 2 years, which gave 2 full years for the oil companies to come out and do capital projects. If they chose not to and just kept doing the maintenance programs, I think you would have seen it be reversed. We would have lost absolutely nothing, but what it did do is send a good message that we're willing to come a little ways this direction, but at the same time, the oil companies have to put more investment in there because we're competing on a worldwide market. And the other part is on the bracketing. Right now, if you go over $1 over into that next bracket, unlike your income tax where from about 0 to 20,000, you're taxed a certain percentage, that next one to the next higher. What we do on the oil production is that once you go over to that next level, it goes all the way back to $1, and the taxes change and your profit changes. And so that bracketing to me was very important so that they are not being penalized basically for bringing more oil out of the ground.
Mayor Luke Hopkins' plans for a borough-run natural gas utility with clearance from the Fairbanks and North Pole City Councils seem to be the option that folks are coalescing around to try and bring natural gas to Fairbanks. But the idea there is that to present a unified front to get state support. You've been skeptical of that plan. Would you still support that plan if it's the one that comes forward out of the Interior as far as bringing natural gas here, or would you pursue some different option?
Well, I haven't, we're adding more government, and with more government usually is more cost. I personally believe that what we needed to do, we need to go through ADA, Alaska Industrial Development, have the state build the plant so that everybody gets treated equally. And that really was close to what we had the plan at the end. Right now we're going to end up with another board that's going to cost us more money, and we still have no gas. And that really is what my concern is, that we are unified, we know what we have. I'm really afraid that the direction that the borough is going, that we might end up taking out Fairbanks Natural Gas and have less competition versus more competition, and less competition almost always means higher prices.
There's a 1-year moratorium on the departure of the F-16 Aggressor Squadron from Eielson Air Force Base, but the clock is ticking on that, and it's going to be up right around the end of this coming legislative session. Do you think that there's anything more that the state can or should do to help try and keep the jets here?
Oh, we should absolutely continue to fight. And while we're fighting, we should also be looking at other projects that can come up here. We have a lot of the unmanned type of vehicles that we have the airspace to do. We shouldn't just sit back and just keep our arguments, but be looking at the other ways. I am afraid right now it's going to go to Anchorage. And right now we have a lot to offer here, including the new Tanal River Bridge that's going in, so they'll have more ground to be able to do it. But sometimes we're a long way from Washington, D.C., and we need to go there in person and really explain to them what we have here that maybe they just don't realize, and get them on that airplane and show them what we have to offer.
Last year, Governor Parnell made a point of keeping the base student allocation for education funding, K through 12, the same, because he said he wanted to see guarantees of progress in terms of, say, lowering the dropout rate, increasing the graduation rate, that sort of thing, before he would increase funding to schools. What do you feel about the state of education funding in Alaska, and also the governor's what the governor's philosophy there is?
Well, on the base student allocation, the House Finance held quite a few hearings. We brought in 5 or 6 different districts, some rural ones, some urban, and we were just asking them, and even when they came into my office, I asked them the same question: what are the costs that you can't control? And what we kept hearing over and over is health insurance and energy. So we need to be looking at those costs, because if you just up one portion of it, you can't find out where the money's going and what they need the help with. And energy, we know right now in Fairbanks, is so much higher than Anchorage. So by just upping the base student allocation, we're really not addressing that difference between our energy costs to their energy costs.
All right. You have been an outspoken proponent of the state-run plans for controlling air pollution here in the interior, as opposed to, say, borough control. You control at the borough level. Do you think that air quality efforts are basically heading in the right direction? Do you think there's more or something different that we could do in terms of bringing that air pollution down?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, it's all about local control. What my issue was is that we already have statute laws that are already in place that the state is required to enforce. It's not a choice. So my concern was, why would we take those same laws and now make them stricter, because you can't make them more lenient, the borough can't do that, and now bring them down to the borough level where we have to hire more people, pay that through our property taxes when those laws are already in place. In January, when we got the new numbers, they were great. We dropped further than even the borough thought we would, and the reason is because people are listening. You know, they're splitting their wood earlier, they're covering it up like they're supposed to. The change-out program, we got a lot of the outdoor boilers have gone away now. The pollution control devices have been put on another 40 units. Wouldn't it be something, because the EPA told me once that they've never ever had a community come into compliance through voluntary measures. And you know, we could be the first, and I would be proud that we're working as a community instead of looking at ways to find people, when right now everybody's trying to make it the best way they can, and they're not out there trying to hurt anyone.
All right, well, I think that's about all the time we have, but thanks for coming in, Tammie.
Thank you.
And for the rest of you, don't go away just yet. Jamie Schwartzwald's coming up next with sports.